Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. It's good to see you all on this. First off address, I got the opportunity to wear my Goodall Institute pin today. We lost a great humanitarian yesterday in Jane Goodall, and I had, strangely enough, in both my life before this and in politics, I was pretty actively engaged with the geospatial conference of Esri does, and there have been several occasions where I was there to speak, and so was Jane Goodall and the Institute people. So that work is something that I have been watching, and I think the world knows what she did. So honoring Jane Goodall. We returned from a great trade mission to Ireland. It was scheduled last fall, rescheduled because of last year's campaign. Great opportunity to focus on medtech, agtech, had the Mayo Clinic and folks with us, visited Medtronic. We're at Galway University. I was able to spend time with Prime Minister Martin and Deputy Prime Minister Harris, spent time at the Leinster House Parliament, and the one thing I can tell you is there's very little confidence in the federal government in the United States, but the sub-federal focus and Minnesota being a key partner. Of course, Medtronic headquartered in Ireland, but with obviously the operations here, but that collaboration, and was able to address their largest business group and the concerns they have, ranging from tariffs, but to the partnership and the investments in research. And so it was good to have the Mayo Clinic there talking about how you go about from startups to venture capital to getting the physician partners, the clinicians working with you. And of course, Minnesota is still seen, and rightfully so, as the global hub of innovation around medtech and agtech. A lot of interest in sustainable aviation fuel, a lot of interest, obviously, on how we get sustainability out of our agriculture system, but out of our electrical system. With that being said, not any confidence because of the government shutdown. And I think it's appropriate to note on this, with Republicans in full control of Congress, the inability to get a budget done is going to negatively impact Minnesotans. We have been through this before with this administration, and you're going to hear from Anna Mingy, Deputy Commissioner, Budget, talking about the budget. We've been working for about 4 weeks in the preparations for this. There is a playbook, if you will, on how things start to roll back, what furloughs look like, what the impact is. At this early stage, Anna can give you some of the things over the last 24 hours since this has been in and what that impact will be, and the projections of what will happen if this goes longer. But just to be very clear, whether it's the pressure that's on our healthcare facilities, and especially in the rural areas, 18,000 federal employees that will be getting furloughed, and the impact that will have on them. State services and vital programs, those things from veterans to food service programs to housing will start to be impacted. And I think here in Minnesota, there's a good contrast to this. It's difficult on budgeting. It's especially difficult when you have divided government, but they have one-party rule. But you still need to make sure you have to compromise. You're not going to get everything you want. We had to make some really hard decisions on both sides here in Minnesota, but we got a fiscally responsible budget that put us as one of the most fiscally well-managed states, with 12 states. That was done collectively together by coming together and compromising. And I see today, again, the misinformation. Well, it's not misinformation. It was a lie that the Speaker of the House is saying this is because of health care for illegal immigrants. They have one playbook, and it's to try and blame rather than govern. The fact of the matter is Democrats are asking not to cut Medicaid, not to cut these services, especially to rural hospitals, and not to give tax cuts to millionaires at a time when we have to have our budget. We saw that job numbers did not only not grow last month, they shrunk for the first time in over 3 years. So we're in a precarious situation. Our allies across the world, especially in Europe, are deeply concerned about how we're dealing with this. We're seeing the Vice President of the United States sending out memes that are racist against the leadership in the House and Senate at a time when we should be trying to find solutions. So we need to get them back to the table. We need to understand that the state of Minnesota cannot make up the difference on this, nor should the state of Minnesota have to. We pay more in than we get back. These are Minnesota tax dollars that are now not going anywhere. And I'll tell you, some of the early hits will be in the Farm Service offices, the FSA offices, which are already under threat because this is the time that they get used the most during harvest. We're seeing, of course, crisis in farm country because we're not having soybean purchases made. And I'm reminding people that these purchases that China is making elsewhere outside the United States are 10-year contracts, and it's going to be very, very difficult for us to get back into the market. So this is not a time for the federal government to be trying to distract from whatever things need to be done. Donald Trump has many times before he was president said if there's ever a government shutdown, there's one person to blame. It's the president. He was wrong about that. It's also the Speaker of the House. It's also those members of Congress from Minnesota who continue to not get their work done. And I would just say for good measure, I served in the House when shutdowns happen. It is outrageous for me to think that we're sending out memes, we're laughing at people. We have people being furloughed, we have programs being cut, and these people are still receiving a paycheck. So I would encourage the Minnesotans to make sure they turn that back. That's what I always did as a member of Congress, even though I had voted to keep the government open. But I want to spend a little time and have Anna Mingy talk to you about where we're at right now, what we know right now, and what will happen over the next several weeks if this continues. Anna?
Thanks, Governor. Good morning, everyone. I'm Anna Mingy, State Budget Director at Minnesota Management and Budget. As you know, on Tuesday night, the federal fiscal year ended without Congress passing a budget for the next year, 2026. This has really significant ramifications for programs delivered both directly by the federal government and for those state services that rely on federal funds. There are many programs that are directly provided by the federal government that aren't channeled through state government, and it's important that federal agencies provide clarity for Minnesotans. We know that the longer a shutdown lasts, the more likely that critical services such as Head Start or veterans benefits will be impacted over time. You know, as you just heard from the governor, if you exclude the Postal Service, Minnesota is home to about 18,000 federal workers. Most of them work for the Departments of Veterans Affairs and the Department of Agriculture. We don't know at this time exactly how many of those employees will be furloughed, but we know that each department is impacted in different ways. For example, the Department of Veterans Affairs published contingency plans suggest that they will furlough very few workers, while the Department of Agriculture looks like they will furlough about half or discontinue about half of their FTEs. Now, MMB has been working with our state agencies for several weeks to prepare in the event of a federal shutdown. And our analysis has been focusing really significantly on those programs administered by the state that rely on federal funds. Our current analysis is that a lapse in federal funds will have minimal impact on federally funded state activities in the short term. Most state programs have funding remaining from previous funding authorizations, but what we know is that the longer a shutdown lasts, the greater the impact to state programs and services. There have not yet been any interruptions to state-operated programs and services. However, as a shutdown goes on, programs will begin to exhaust those reserves and services will be impacted. We know that things will become particularly challenging if a shutdown extends for several weeks toward November. For example, SNAP and WIC, really critical food benefits for Minnesotans, look like they will be available through the month of October, but funds may not be available for November, as we learn more from federal agencies. We are analyzing our federal funds line by line to understand where previous appropriations exist and where they will expire in the coming weeks, and to understand the potential impacts on state personnel and our services. One important note is that our analysis leverages examples managing previous federal shutdowns. However, the most recent federal shutdown was a partial federal shutdown. Also, the current federal administration may not follow the historic playbook. You know, we continue to hope that Congress will pass a budget or a continuing resolution to fund the federal government, but the situation is unpredictable and we are planning accordingly. State agencies remain committed to do all we can to serve the people of Minnesota, but as you heard from the governor, our state budget is not able to backfill all of the commitments made by the federal government. We will continue monitoring the situation and we'll keep you informed as we know more.
Any questions?
Are you aware of this? The White House budget director said that they canceled $8 billion in climate funding, including Minnesota. Are you aware of what that program is with climate support?
So we are aware of significant rescissions to sort of energy projects across a variety of states. It appears that in Minnesota, many of them are grants to private entities, although it looks like there may be a grant that impacts the State Department of Commerce that was affected as well.
Governor, are you worried about the federal government, Trump administration, targeting blue states with funding freezes and whatnot? I think we saw some of that in California and New York.
Yeah, and think about, it's a great question. Think about how outrageous it is. Think about how not normal that statement is. They continue to try and divide us. They continue to try and make this case. So yes, I do worry about that. And just like states that are making aggressive moves on climate that are lowering the costs of energy for people, and every single economist and every single energy expert shows that they will raise the cost by not allowing us to diversify that. So yeah, I do worry about that. I think we've seen this, a vindictiveness, a willingness to try and target. And this whole idea that they see states as Democrats and Republicans, or they see areas as red or blue, is simply the most egregious violation of their oath to try and take care. You have a responsibility to give your best for people who vote against you. They don't see it this way. And I remind you all, this is not normal. This, you know, the desire to find both sides do it type of thing is, it's pretty hard. I don't think you've ever found another president who said, they're my enemy, I don't want to help, I don't want to do things. And so, yeah, I worry about that. And that's why our team is continuing to watch.
Governor, how concerned are you that the Trump administration will start firing workers instead of furloughing them? And do you think they might target workers in blue states?
I do. I think it goes back to this question, Tom, that it appears like they're trying to do that. The disruption is there. The willingness of the Speaker of the House to blatantly, I have seen Fox News even correct this issue, that trying to tell the public we're in a massive misinformation campaign. The President himself tweeting out AI videos of fake news reports on health care. This is really dangerous, and it's really hard. And I cannot express to you the concern and the absolute bafflement and fear of our European allies asking me, is this stuff really going on? So yeah, I have a feel that they do that. And again, they're going to tell you this, and like with the VA, and this is what really drives me crazy, they'll come back and tell you, oh, we're not firing anybody important. We're not going to fire doctors. No, just the people who change the linens or get the surgical instruments cleaned so they're ready to go. Those people aren't there. Or the IT, the people that allow you to schedule your appointment with the VA. There's a reason that all these people work together in agencies, and everybody's valuable in them. So yes, I do worry about that, Tom.
On that, Governor, does it change your approach at all? Obviously, you're on his radar, having been on the presidential ticket.
Yeah.
But you are mentioning Trump, you are mentioning Vance. Does it change your approach at all, thinking that it could hurt your state if you go after them too much?
I'm not going after them, I'm speaking the truth. I'm certainly not going to bend a knee to what they're doing. I'm certainly not going to say, oh, this is fine, the way they talk like that. I think you hear my rhetoric is that we're willing to find working solutions. And I think the contrast here was, look, and I have said this and given credit to Republican legislators here in Minnesota, we navigated, I think, and I said, had it not been for the horrific murder of Melissa and Mark, there was a real success story there to get out of this budget year the way we did together, and I think that's the model. So I'm not going to moderate that. I'm going to tell him to go back to work, and I am going to challenge him. I mean, my God, we've got the White House threatening investigations in jail time because an escalator stopped. Walk up the damn stairs. This stuff happens. This is life. Do not normalize this. So I'm going to continue to approach them. I'll continue to work with them. We'll continue to deliver. And I said, if there are lawful laws that are in place, we will follow that. If we need to challenge in court, we'll challenge in court. But this idea that you've got to go and kiss the ring, or you've got to go and give some type of award to get basic services that he swore an oath to defend, that is outrageous. So no, I will not change how we approach that.
Are you in agreement with congressional Democrats who are withholding votes on this and the stipulations they're seeking for that?
Yeah, they're not withholding votes, and I think this frame of this is, oh, we could get this done if just 6 Democrats would vote for this horrific budget. Well, we could also get it done if 8 Republicans voted for a really good budget that continued to give health care and not tax cuts to the wealthy. That's how close this is. This idea that it's Democrats' responsibility to get this thing over when it's absolutely horrific. And again, to get there, were there some things that I signed and would have rather not this last legislative session? Yes. Were there things that Republicans had to vote on that they would have rather not have? Yes. And what we got out of that is a fiscally responsible budget where people are talking, you know, there's a structural imbalance 4 years out, gone because of that responsibility. Working.
Says you guys lost the election in November in the House and the Senate. They passed the budget. You guys have repeatedly supported continuing resolutions. So
Well, just keep in mind that Tom Emmer is the architect of this. He's the whip, and this is not how it works. And it's constantly campaigning with Congressman Emmer, someone who spends his time demeaning me and my military service when he didn't do a day in uniform. That's the expectation I get now. I couldn't express my disappointment in Tom Emmer more than inability of trying to work together, work with our office, tell us what you need on this. We can disagree, but him trying to make the case we won the election, we can do whatever. Is that what he was saying here when we won? Is that what he thought was okay, that we could do that we could do whatever we wanted? It's just outrageous. There's talking points, there's this rhetoric, and then it comes up against reality. This is very simple. Don't cut the Medicaid. You're gonna get your tax cuts for the wealthy. You've got enough people on that. But to get them, you're gonna have some things. That is the same thing that happened here. Republicans made it clear that they didn't think health care was a human right that everybody should get. They asked us to not do that. For us to be able to get a budget done, we were willing to try and compromise, protecting children but making some changes. That was a very difficult vote, but it's one that got things done. So it's all rhetoric. It's getting nothing done. It's not serving Minnesota. And look, when those hospitals and those people out in the 6th District, the good thing is they know who they can call.
Let's do one more.
Yeah.
Do you know what the timeline is for those 18,000 furloughs if when those start going out?
So that we don't have information about the timing of federal furloughs, and I think that 18,000 is sort of the total federal workers outside of the Postal Service, and we'll just have to see more how that affects sort of how federal operations sort of roll out, but that's not something that we have information about right now.
Do you have a guess? Has anybody said how many of those 18,000 could be?
Not that I'm aware of, but we will sort of keep you informed as we know more.
Just a quick follow-up. Do you guys have any sort of cost estimates, like, I don't know, the per day amount that this is having as an immediate impact? Like, are there any like fiscal numbers yet?
You know, we don't have any of those numbers right now in terms of cost to Minnesota or costs to the state, but the information coming out of federal contingency planning sort of came out very late, and in some places we're still waiting for it, so it's hard for us to sort of give you a comprehensive number.
Could I ask on this what you're asking for is for 4 weeks we've had people who should be doing other things working on this. How many people spend their days preparing for this contingency? I should be a reporter.
That's a great question.
That's a really good question.
But there's a spot right there, Governor. So we have, within MMB, there is a team of over a dozen people working on this every day. We also, I don't want to understate the work going on within our state agencies, particularly the Departments of Human Services, the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. They run SNAP, Department of Health runs WIC. So it's, it's dozens or it's hundreds of state employees that are working on this.
SNAP and WIC availability being uncertain for November, it's like November 1st. Do you think it could last a little bit into November, or what does that look like?
So without going into the details of the differences in SNAP and WIC administration, I'd say SNAP benefits are sort of loaded at the beginning of a month, and so I think with SNAP it's more likely that it would be sort of an on-off, all or nothing. With WIC, the benefits are provided on more of a rolling basis, but that's something we'll have to work with the departments on.
Quick question about special session.
Last impasse you're staring at here in the state on
Yeah.
special session. Are you still going to call one? Has the window closed?
Well, look, and I think you're seeing more of this. And again, it's this negotiation. And I said, process-wise, I was grateful that the Republicans at least were still sitting at the table. But I think what you all saw was there was an accusation that I had mischaracterized what the sticking point was. And then it was in writing what we were asking for, and it was in writing what the Republicans responded. And the issue was that we wanted to talk about gun violence, and that was totally missing from the Republican offer. And my point is, if we're going to come back in a special session and address what the public clearly wants, we need to discuss the whole spectrum of issues. And the Republicans focused again, school mental health safety, which I pointed out they criticized that we weren't spending enough of that, even though they voted against it. And we saw last week that the first studies came out on red flag laws showing that it saved lives. They voted against that. And so we can show that we're making a difference, but their inability to have that, so for us to come back in and give Republicans everything they want without anything we want, they are acting just like Republicans in D.C. right now. And so what I'm asking them is, and you've heard people just simplify this, it seems like it would be simple just to put it to a vote and put people on record of where they stand. And that is the simple answer. So the impasse is, I'm not asking them, I think they should vote for it. I think the data shows that. I would like them to vote for it, but they need to vote their conscience. But to simply stop us from being able to have this discussion, to be able to run it out, to be able to do that, very, very frustrating, because right now they want to talk about everything other than guns. We're still working it. Still working it. So we're still working it.
Are you still running on Sunday despite the heat?
I am running despite the heat. Hydrate now, so I'll be doing the 10-mile. I'm running with hope, so I'll probably see you from behind, Tom, but we'll be out there. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Well, this is a little bit of a difficult question because I promised Hope I'd run with her, and knock on wood, I'm actually running pretty hard. And people who run a lot know if you're running with a friend, you can't like leave them. So I told Hope I'm still very pride thing on this. My kids still can't beat me yet. So I think we'll run 9:30s maybe. That's pretty good, huh, Tom? Hour and a half. That's what we'll see you. So come out and watch, everybody. Thanks.
Thank